Welcome to the Rankings Podcast, where we feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and elite personal injury attorneys and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Chris Stryer here, president and founder of Rankings.io. You're listening to the Rankings Podcast, where I feature top business owners, entrepreneurs, and elite personal injury attorneys. Speaking of elite personal injury attorneys, I have Kelley, the managing partner of Elk and Elk, on the show today. Jay has been included in the best lawyers in America since 2016 for medical malpractice and personal injury litigation. He is an Avvo 10 out of 10 rated attorney. He holds the Martindale AV Preeminent Distinction and has achieved many other legal awards and accomplishments. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you. So let's just jump right in. So take me back to the beginning of joining Elk and Elk. What was it like for you in those early days?
So when I joined Elk and Elk was 2002, and I came from being a civil defense attorney and was actually representing physicians and institutions. Most relevant, probably the Cleveland Clinic was one of my biggest outside clients. So for me, it's the same cup, trial work involving medical claims, but obviously switching sides.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, most personal injury firms, they're just doing the motor vehicle accidents, and that's pretty common. So let's talk about your specialty, medical malpractice. What attracted you to this niche, and how did you get started there?
Like a lot of people, the opportunity finds you. And I had been a felony prosecutor down in Akron, Ohio, and I tried a case against a doctor, a criminal case. And the lawyer who was representing the doctor worked at a medical malpractice defense firm. Even though we were adversaries in the case, obviously it was a professional and collegial relationship, and he had that firm then come hire me. And that firm was a really cool firm. And so you kind of got inundated, worked with nurses and medical groups, over the course of your first 2 years to really dig deep into the medicine and the science, and also the trial support. So that's how medical malpractice found me. It found me through trial work. And I love it because it's a fact-driven practice, and every case has its own unique set of circumstances.
Yeah, I love that. And most personal injury attorneys, they don't do medical malpractice. Can you explain why many attorneys avoid this area of the law?
So it's expensive, it's complicated, and the statistics kind of bear out that it's a very difficult area to win in front of a jury. So I think that the auto cases and the slip and falls, while those are challenging, and I don't mean to demean those practices at all, they're a little more predictable. A medical malpractice case, when I try a birth injury claim, we usually have somewhere upwards of $250,000 in advanced case expenses, out on that case. And when you talk about betting on yourself in this world, you're betting on your own triage assessment of the case and assessment of those facts, because that money doesn't come back. So I think the overhead and the risk scares a lot of people out of it. And you do have to have at least a level of medical knowledge to be able to sense, whether or not a witness is being transparent and honest with you, during the course of depositions and or testimony, depending on what state you're in.
So like those EQ components, kind of reading the witnesses and that aspect.
Yeah, and we've done, I do every year, I lecture to medical groups, some of the largest, nursing groups for neonatal, which is obviously, newborn healthcare, a group called AWHONN, AWHONN. I speak, frequently there. I do fetal monitoring lecturing. I've invested myself I've written textbook chapters in medical text for gynecology, fetal monitoring. And people always laugh and they're like, why in the world would you do it? And why in the world would they invite you? And the line I always use to start those speeches is, I've never learned anything from someone I agree with. And, if we really want to improve healthcare, and that includes not only the delivery of healthcare in an efficient and safe manner, but also the compensation system for people who are hurt during healthcare, because it's foreseeable. Like, you can't avoid that there's going to be mistakes made in healthcare. And you need a system that's, also reasonable and efficient for them. So I believe that by sharing a patient's perspective in a lawsuit with physicians and nurses, hopefully it makes them less fearful of the process. And we always hear about defensive medicine and things like that. And we can find those efficiencies that allow us to tell where there might be a case of merit and how to process it, without really taxing the legal system or the family too much. So I'm not somebody who wants to, having been on that defense side, I have so much respect for the providers, but I also have such a keen awareness of what people are going through. And, honestly, that's probably one of the skills I think that I provide, is a very sharp ability to navigate the process. What happened? Because that's why they call. They don't call us saying, like, give us money. I've never had a client ask me about money. Every client asks one question, and it's the same question, and they're like, I don't know what happened. And they want an answer.
Wow.
It's a cool practice.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So you have this rounded experience of being on both sides and kind of getting immersed. You're writing the chapters in the book, and you have this deep level expertise. And I thought one of the things that I read, and I don't remember if it was an interview or in your bio, I'm not sure, that you mentioned that, you took drama and theater classes and they were very valuable for you being a trial lawyer. What about those classes impacted your ability in the courtroom?
So I 100% am a lawyer because of 2 acting classes I took at the College of Worcester from a professor that was a visiting professor from Ireland named Vincent Dowling. And I met him. He encouraged me to take his class. I went to college thinking I was going to be a physician. And, part of the reality was chemistry was really hard. So that I would be lying if I didn't put that in there as part of the factor. But in that class, he really was all about how you communicate, and that acting was just a form of communication, and how you communicate with your body posture, your position, your tone, and how the words, while they're part of it, communication is so much more. And I kind of fell in love with public speaking. I kind of fell in love with the aspects of, communication, in that regard. So I took that course. Then I took Shakespearean styles of acting. I think my parents were terrified. Like, what did they do? They're sending their kid off to college. All of a sudden, he's going into the fine arts. But it just really made me want to get into persuasive speaking. And so I use it in every trial, where I stand, how I stand at sidebar. I am conscious of how I appear throughout the entirety of a trial, in hopes that it's sending a message to at least somebody.
That I love that. I mean, especially the body language. I mean, you immediately get that first impression based on body language and how you're representing yourself. Let me take it kind of a different direction too. So you're now the managing partner of Elk and Elk, and I'm going to give you a question that you probably won't get normally. So, Elk and Elk, it's founded by 2 brothers, Arthur and David. Do you find, since it's a family-owned business, those candid conversations come easier? Because it's family. Those tough conversations for the family dynamic. Because everyone says you're not supposed to mix business and family, but it seems to be working. So, what's it like being the managing partner in that mix?
So here's what I'll tell you. Every strength is your weakness. You can never separate them. And the strongest thing that we have is our family values principles. And to not give David credit and Art credit for that would be, the most shallow thing I could ever do. My life changed dramatically by coming here in ways I never anticipated. So the family values and the family nature of it does create an intimacy and a trust within the 4 walls that I think really helps the day-to-day management of the firm. The risk of a family firm is the perception that it can create outside. And so people, when you hear the repeating names or you see brothers, you start to wonder what's here. So sometimes we have tried to make sure that people understand that while we did start as a family firm, I mean, we now have 87 employees. We have 22 lawyers. Our average lawyer tenure here, I think, is 14 years right now.
Wow.
And so we keep people. And that's a reflection of those family values. But sometimes communicating that it's not just a family firm, because some people, what do you want to hire? You want to hire the firm that has the most resources. You can say it, but you've got to have a way to let people inside to see that we have multiple nurses and multiple specialties on staff. That we have our own entire marketing department. We have our own filming studio. Like, it's a significant business. It's really two businesses. It's a law firm and a, marketing, arm.
I love that. When you identify the values too, it helps you to identify who would be the right fit for your firm. Because, ultimately I talk about this a lot, right? You couldn't take a catcher and put them in center field. You couldn't take a 5-foot point guard and put them in the center position. Do you find that knowing and understanding those values makes it really easy to recruit and hire, and not only that, but to keep your people for 14 years? I mean, that's just incredible.
I think that our biggest challenge, because we're plaintiff attorneys, so if there's going to be a joke at a holiday party, it's probably going to be about us. So the public sees you differently from the skyscraper law firm and things like that. But what's interesting is legally, we have no shortage of available, talented, incredible people that want to come work here. And that wasn't the case, 18, 20 years ago. The firm was kind of on an uptick, and that was from Art and Dave making a true commitment, to making it the best firm anywhere in the country. But, you walk down our halls, the vast majority of people here have been partners at other defense law firms over the years.
Wow.
So we went and somebody who we thought was the best that we came across in trucking, let's go get them. The person, I try a lot of birth injury cases, the woman who I always thought was the most difficult to have on the other side, she's a neonatal nurse who went to law school. Let's just go get her. You know what I mean? And what we were amazed by is that by doing the business the way that we think is right, and everybody has their own opinion of what's right in the business, it's been amazing that doors that used to never open for us with incredibly talented, successful lawyers at some of the biggest firms, those people are now, they not only take your call, they're excited. And it's allowed us to add a ton of talent, to this firm and experience to this firm, that I think really does benefit not only the firm, but the clients.
Yeah, I can't remember the saying, but it's like, if the most talented people like to hang out with talented people, and they get frustrated when someone's not talented. So when you start bringing on all these amazing attorneys, it's probably just brings this overall impact and just perception that and just raises the bar.
It does, so we on the medical malpractice side, every case goes through a filter system here. And that system that we put it through it's collaborative. It would be the most insanely narcissistic thing in the world for me to say, I'm going to decide alone if you have a case. So what we do is we kind of take the case almost like a funnel, and we go one step at a time. But at every step, all of the attorneys who are in our firm that do medical malpractice, the nurses and the paralegals who work the cases, are all in that room. So if we decide that something's not a case, it's after we've indexed the records, reviewed the literature, and it's a collective decision. And our hope in that is that from a firm standpoint, we don't miss good cases because somebody doesn't see something. But most importantly for the client, they're not getting a single attorney review, they're getting 5 attorneys reviewing their case. You know what I mean? With a nurse, with medical research. You know what I mean? And we go one step at a time. And if it passes through the gate, we go to the next step, so that we're trying to always provide honest, timely answers to people. And it's not a single opinion. We're not just one lawyer saying, I love your case, or I don't like your case.
I love that. So this is very unique because I'm kind of being a business nerd. I'm kind of envisioning your org chart and kind of your values. A lot of businesses, they have these top down, they're called mechanistic or traditional hierarchy type businesses where everyone's kind of in their columns and their silos, but you have more of it's more, I don't want to say, it's more like a pod, like a collaborative pod of experts. And that's different. That is not the norm. Normally it's like, here are all the, this business function. It's not jointly. So that's definitely unique.
It's not only unique, and what's fun about it is it really makes your day better. And it provides so much peace of mind to you as a lawyer that if all of a sudden your thoughts are validated or your questions are clarified by people within your own firm as your own resource. And, when we get to the point of filing a case, what we typically do is we're supposed to have a case filing meeting where the most detailed presentation is in there. And everybody then voices on, I would get this expert. Watch out for this specialty. You know what I mean? This is who typically represents, that medical group. I've had a case against them. We'll even dig back through, past cases that we've had against the same groups. Because you want to go into it, giving people the best chance in the world to make a recovery, within the legal system. Because like I said, med-mal, it's tough.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about that. Let's go the other side. So let's talk about, some learning experiences. Are there any pitfalls that stand out that, that was, I know that the top leaders in the world, they always say like, there's never, it wasn't a mistake. You always learn from your mistakes. Is there any pitfalls that stand out, like things that went wrong, but now you've learned from them?
So we have definitely gotten better about learning how to be 100% transparent, even with bad facts for clients early. People aren't hiring a cheerleader. They might think they want a cheerleader at first, but we have a very, very transparent approach with our clients where we tell them, this is the risk of your case. This is the challenge of your case. And by including clients every step of the way in the process and making the client the singular focus of the process, it has honestly changed our business in the office and in the courtroom. And, we have a mission statement for the people in here that if it's good for the client, do it. If it's good for the firm, do it. If it's not fair to you, we'll fix it. But we only fix it after you do what's best for the client and the firm. And, a story that I will tell you is myself and a lawyer, I tried a bunch of cases with a fantastic lawyer. We tried a case where we killed the other side, factually, and it could not have gone better. And we learned 2 huge things in that case. It was a tight courtroom. He and I sat at the trial table. The client sat behind the rail just because of the way the court was configured. And we talked about it when it first came up. We're like, I don't know if I like her being back there. And we're like, well, but we need the table. We're lawyers. It's about us. And, so they kind of became a little disconnected, from the case. And going back to my whole posture and communication, it prevented any sort of interaction with your client where people saw that the case was not about 2 lawyers that people probably don't like presumptively. It's now not about that nice couple behind the rail. We learned that, and we learned that even with the jury, you have to say what you want immediately. We ended up, and what I mean by that is people always save damages and stuff like that for the end. We didn't mention our ask in the case until closing argument. And I saw one juror's face light up. And jury goes out. They give us a verdict well above what the last offer was. So it was a good verdict.
Wow.
But it wasn't what we wanted or thought the case presentation factually mandated for this family. And the juror said something to me. I went right at him. I was like, can you tell me? I go, you made a facial expression when I made the request. And he goes, last night I was sitting at home by myself and I decided I was going to vote for you guys in this case. He said, and I didn't know what that meant. So I started thinking, how much do I want to give them? And he goes, the number that we gave is the number that I came up with last night. And it was a good number. It wasn't the number we asked for. And what was interesting about that was I've always said it's easy to convince people of things they want to believe and almost impossible in a courtroom to change their mind. It's a fight. You can't change someone's mind in a fight. And, I let him formulate his own belief as to what the value of the case was. And there was nothing I could say in closing argument that was going to change that. And then he convinced the entire jury, how he got to his number and became the authority in the case. So from that moment forward, we put damages in jury selection, in open. We told people exactly what we were asking for. And what's interesting is I would say in greater than 90% of the cases where we have been successful since, we've gotten the exact number we asked for. It's become a destination because those people don't know. Just like our clients, when they come in, don't know what their case is worth. They don't know what the facts of the case are, what's required. So you kind of say, this is where we're going. If I prove number 1 and number 2 to you, can you go to this is where we think number 3 is. So instead of putting people on a road, without a map and without telling them, where they're going to be spending their vacation days, we say, this is where you're going. This is what we're asking for. This is why we're asking for it. And so we've come totally around that it's a client first business and you have to be immediately transparent with everyone you interact with, opposing counsel, courts, clients, and jurors.
Jay, that's incredible. I love that. And you're hitting the Ray Dalio's principle book, Radical Candor, Radical Transparency. Just everything on the head. Let's talk about, first of all, that was just amazing. It makes sense, because you're the expert, you need to set the tone and there is no winner in an argument, right?
Can't win. You can't change someone's mind in an argument. Right.
So, you're the managing partner of Elk and Elk now. And I like to ask this question. It's a little bit different to get you to think a little bit too, but your time is so precious and you only have so much time. So what does your high value activities look like? What provides the most value to the firm that you do?
So there's 3 places where I think my time gets divided among. One is case management. And I love that part of my practice. You know what I mean? And what I have done is I handle still the same, typically the birth injury, the catastrophic cases, you know what I mean? Or if someone is a specific client of mine or referral to me. But, I've reduced some of that volume in my life because, look, if I represent you, you have my cell phone from day one. And honestly, if you on my website, you have my cell phone from day one. You know what I mean? If I'm your lawyer and you can't get a hold of me, I'm not your lawyer. You know what I mean? I'm just a phone number or some blog post. The other part is inter-office day-to-day management. And, whether that be case assignments or those types of things. But, John O'Neill, I would say, who's in our office, as a, partner as well, does a lot of the running, if not all of the running of the litigation side, for the auto cases, the trucking cases, and some of those issues. And then the marketing. And the marketing, if you think about it, it's storytelling at the end of the day. So, people probably, if you look historically, have seen my goal from a marketing standpoint for the firm is really introducing the truth of our firm to the public. And the legal community knows who we are. The legal community knows what we are. And as I, say, like, the legal community trusts and respects us. How in the world do you introduce to when 99.9% of the population never thinks they're going to need a lawyer? So we're an interstitial or interruptive ad no matter what we do. You know what I mean? How do you communicate with them? And so what we've tried to do is try to do things where we start to introduce more people in our firm than Art and Dave. So kind of bring the entire firm forward so people see the quality of attorney, the quality of paralegal, the quality of nursing, and support staff that we have here. And so we can start to earn people's trust where they don't just say, that's a law firm that advertises. They say, the same way they look at a hospital, like in Cleveland, the same way they look at the Cleveland Clinic and say, if I had something serious, I want to go to University Hospitals or Cleveland Clinic because those are our two largest hospitals with the best people and the best resources. You don't want to put your money in a small bank. You know what I mean?
Right.
I want people to start to look at our firm the same way that, wait a second, I can get personal service, I can get quality service and better service there because I've seen the resources that they bring to bear. They've seen cases similar to mine before. So, a third of my time is in marketing, and part of marketing is, we have a ton of brand recognition. We're trying to build both for the industry of, legal work and the firm specifically, brand credibility.
I love that. It's a great answer. The brand equity, for me too. So I'm prepping for our interview, prepping for our conversation. And, I know the name of the firm is Elk and Elk, but what I can tell you is one of the first things that stood out was just expertise. I trusted that your firm was very high quality and did exceptional work. I don't know exactly what it was for one individual thing that I read, but it was kind of an immersive experience. You've got a great website, and that's just kind of the feeling that I got as an observer. So let me go over to a personal question just to have some fun here. So I read you were a big Cavs and Browns fan, and so I got to ask, how did you handle LeBron leaving? Do you still own any LeBron jerseys?
So the first time was hard. For sure. The first time LeBron left was definitely hard because, he was one of your own and you had something so special and unique. The second time wasn't as hard. Not that we don't want him here because he's such a great ambassador for our city and for our state. And I went to law school in Akron, started prosecuting in Akron. So I have a ton of Akron connections. And, but he delivered something to this city that had gotten to a point where it almost seemed impossible. It'd been 52 years without a championship. So, when he left the second time, I was honestly just happy for him. The first time I was hurt for myself. The second time I was happy for him. I was like, you know what, if this is what he wants, if this is what he's going to do. And one of the things I love about him is if you look at how that guy surrounded himself, Rich Paul, local Cleveland kid, Randy Mims, like all the people, Maverick Carter, those are all local kids and friends of his loyalty to his school and the community. So we have no hard feelings for him at all. Now, the Browns, I
had to ask you just to have a little fun.
The Browns are my lifeblood, so we can talk lovingly about them forever.
So, hey, let's do one final question here, Jay. So what questions or stories did we not talk about that you feel would be important for our audience?
So from a trial lawyer standpoint, one of the things that I will tell you that the single best lesson I learned in my life as a trial lawyer, of course, came like every lesson out of failure. And it was when I started as a prosecutor, the second week I was at work, I ended up trying a case by myself because the lead prosecutor in my courtroom fell ill. So, here I was, looked all of probably 12 years old with freckles and, colics in my hair, and tried an aggravated arson case. Won the case, couldn't have been more excited for myself. But if I'm being fair, there was an eyewitness who saw the crime. They caught him a mile away from the crime with the evidence. So it wasn't a Rubik's Cube. The second case I tried, like 10 days later, won. Again, not the most complicated case. My third case that I tried, I lost. And it was a really tough case. The evidence was much thinner. There was a lot more steps. The lawyer on the other side was just a really, really cool guy who I loved trying the case against. And my mentor in that prosecutor's office was a guy named Fred Zook, the nicest, most humble guy you could ever meet. And Fred brought me in and said, he goes, there's something I always say about verdicts. He goes, they can make a fool look like a hero and a hero look like a fool. And he goes, I've watched your trials. He goes, you weren't that good in your first case and you won. He goes, you tried a really nice case in your third case and you lost. You were a much better lawyer in case 3 than case 1. So he said, never judge yourself by the verdict. He goes, instead, while you're waiting for that verdict, use that time to ask yourself, did the case go in as I had expected? Did the case go in as well as I could have put that case in? And he goes, be fair to yourself and then accept the verdict. And it's hard to do for clients. And I don't minimize, I say in the course of my, 20 some years, there's 6 cases that I truly wish, of the hundreds turned out differently. And I say those names every morning. They're in my wallet. But for me as a lawyer, I do that same process every time. The minute the case is done, while we're waiting for the verdict, I do my own, debrief of the case. And honestly, it's the only time you can be fair. Because if you get a big verdict, you're a hero no matter how bad you were in the courtroom. If you lose, people are going to question you no matter what. So that was the single best advice I ever got. And it kind of gives you a little bit of a defensive back mentality. That every once in a while it's not going to go your way.
So that was going to be my final question, but I have to ask another question here just because it's such a great statement. So you talked about the debrief, you talked about the retrospective, post-mortem. There's all kinds of different types of names for this continuous improvement. Do you take that same approach on the case that you won? Yeah,
for sure. So you're done. You don't know if you won or not. So you absolutely dig through it. And, I'm a believer that, you want to do your best for these people. And what an incredible privilege for someone to trust you. No one wants to be a plaintiff. No one would trade their health or their child's health for any amount of money. But they can't pay for bills. They can't, work, whatever the challenge is. And I take such great pride in the fact that someone trusts me. Honestly, I still see myself as the same, like everyone else. You see yourself as the same person who grew up, went to high school, college, but you don't see yourself as necessarily someone's resource. But, whether we win or lose, and on every case that we resolve or win, I try to make it my mission to call those clients every year just to see how they're doing. Because honestly, some people put their money into annuities, some people put their money into investments, some people do different things. And so I want to learn, because if I learn that a client did something in their house that made their child's, cerebral palsy easier to deal with, I want to be able to tell the next client who we're successful for. And honestly, it charges you up too. When you call and hear that you're making a functional difference in someone's day-to-day life, and that's what lawsuits are about. Lawsuits aren't about boats and money and luxurious items. Lawsuits for us are about wheelchairs, wide doorways, track systems and ceilings, extra exits, from houses. So, never, ever, ever, ever stop learning, from your successes, from your failures. Whatever it is, there's something there that will be better for your next client.
That's incredible, Jay. So guys, we've been talking to Jay Kelley, elite personal injury attorney and managing partner at Elk and Elk. Jay, where can people go to learn more about you and the firm?
So our website is elkandelk.com. Feel like a political candidate, giving out your website name. But, you can go on there, and if anybody who watches this has a question for me, my cell phone is on there, my email is on there, and, happy to help anyone out that we can.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay.
Thanks for listening to the Rankings Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.